Welcome back to the Game Changer Unlocked. Loving what you're watching? Don't miss a moment of the Game Changer Unlocked or any of your favorite Now Media TV shows, live or on demand, anytime, anywhere. Download the free Now Media TV app on Roku or iOS and enjoy instant access to the full lineup of bilingual programming, both in English and Spanish. From business to breaking news to lifestyle to culture to everything in between, Now Media TV streams 24/7, ready whenever you are. Welcome back to the Game Changer Unlocked. I'm here with Erwin McManus, and now we're going to dive into the art of leading through adversity and lessons that really define resilient leadership. Every leader, faces setbacks, pressure, criticism, and kind of sets them apart is not avoiding the struggles, but how they respond to them and how they kind of help their teams rise stronger. Erwin, what's the hardest leadership challenge that you've ever faced, and what kind of helped you through it?
Whenever you ask a question like what's the singular hardest thing or what's the best thing or the worst thing, my brain instantly paralyzes because it's very hard for me to categorize things in that
Right.
way. There have
What's
been,
one of them then?
yeah, uh, mostly because there's just so many of them that have
True.
been incredibly difficult, and the one that's most present always feels like the worst one. And, you know, but honestly, I think the most challenging part of my role as a leader is when you come to care about someone very, very deeply. You have an honest, genuine relationship with them, and they are not meeting the expectations or performance level required to stay on the team.
Hmm.
I find firing people who are not likable, who are offensive or arrogant, or that's not hard.
Right.
Because if you fire for character, you just feel like you've done a service to the world, you know. And but when you have to terminate someone or let someone go that is really, a very like kind person or just a person you really love and appreciate, um, but they aren't they're either not willing, I was going to say, or able, but I'm going to mostly say willing. I almost put nothing into the category of able, and where they're not willing to make the really difficult internal structural choices to elevate to the level that the organization needs. That's when it's really, really hard. And I find those to be incredibly difficult. I also think that if you were just really getting down to the nitty gritty, on a human level, the thing that's most painful is whenever you feel a sense of betrayal.
Hmm.
And I talk to so many leaders. In fact, I hardly know an entrepreneur that has not lost one of their companies to a business partner, to a best friend, to someone they founded the company with and later betrayed them. And I find the story of betrayal to be one of the most common business stories from entrepreneurs. And I think a huge part of it is when you come together specifically for outcome goals, there isn't that same connection that will help you stay together, not through failure, but actually through success.
Hmm.
But when you partner with someone where it's the friendship, it's the journey together, it's the excitement of success and failure together that binds you, those are the people who stay with you. And one of the most challenging things is, people are different on a spectrum of trust. Some people have low, low, low trust. Their basic structure in life is, I don't trust anyone. You have to prove to me you're trustworthy. And then you have people on the other end of the spectrum says, I trust everyone. And you have to prove to me that you're untrustworthy. And I fall on that side of the spectrum. I trust everyone, and they have to prove to me they're untrustworthy. And so one of the great challenges is you end up trusting people that really did not merit or deserve your trust. And what you have to really work through and process as a person is, are you going to change your mind or keep trusting people? because otherwise that person's actions will change who you are inherently. And even with my team, they'll say, "Hey, you're just so open and you trust so many people." And I tell them, every system I know that grows in a really beautiful way has a high level of trust. And so I would rather have a high level of trust with an occasional betrayal than a low level of trust, missing out on an endless number of incredible people who are worthy of that trust.
That's a great way to look at it, an incredible way to look at it. Because it is so true that those two ways that you just described, I can see in so many different people that I know. And
Mhm.
it's very interesting to kind of differentiate between the two. When you start, because we're talking about faith and we're talking about the secular side of things with leadership, does leading, under pressure in the secular world differ from in the spiritual world, in your opinion?
That's funny, Brian, because I think here's the secret. It's all spiritual. There is no secular world. And every human being is inherently spiritual. And even if you don't believe in God, you might be listening and you don't think there is a God, you're still spiritual because you believe in love. You believe in the future. I mean, think about this. We build our lives on a belief system that something will exist that doesn't exist. It's called tomorrow.
Hmm.
So all of life is inherently spiritual. The greatest entrepreneurs believe they can take the invisible and translate it into the visible. The greatest inventors believe the impossible can be made possible. And leaders believe that a world that does not exist can be created and become the future that we live in. All of life is spiritual. And it's a matter of translating it out of religious language into human language. And so for me, I don't change my language. I use the same language on Sunday that I use on Monday. If it isn't inherently human, it's just a cliche, it's just a social construct, and it becomes empty religion.
It's definitely, I think that's a different, it's going to lead to my next question. I think it's a different mindset shift from what most people would think. And with using the word mindset, and that's your latest book, Mind Shift. You know, talk to me about the changing the way that we think. And what's a shift, a mindset shift, I should say, that leaders, should make.
Yeah, actually, the last two books I've written are Mind Shift, and then I wrote a book called The Seven Frequencies of Communication on human communication and human frequencies. Part of the reason I wrote Mind Shift is that there's this interesting dynamic that genius is oftentimes just one iteration off of stupidity. and or if you want to be more gracious, of normacy. Like a lot of times people feel like I just don't know how to make those breakthrough ideas. I don't know how to get to that higher level of self. But it's not this exponential shift. It's a very small incremental shift.
Okay.
And so what I chose in Mind Shift is I chose about 8 different mental shifts that if you make these slight shifts, it will radically alter your life. It's just like a space shift, leaving from the Earth, trying to get to Mars, and even the smallest incremental error will send you out into hyperspace, and you'll never get to your destination. And it's the same way with all these other aspects in life. Chapters 1 and 3 in Mind Shift are almost a juxtaposition. Chapter 1 is it's all about people.
Mm.
But chapter 3 is you can't take everyone with you. And when you take those two principles and begin applying them in leadership, one, it'll drive you insane because what I find is some people are very high on it's all about people. Then they're very low on you can't take everyone with you. And then some people are very, very high on you can't take everyone with you, but they're very, very low on it's all about people. And so the shift isn't always in the same direction. It's really paying attention to what your natural inclination is and then make the adjustment that you need to make as you move through. So I just chose these small incremental mental structures that I saw change my life and change the life of an endless number of people. And that's why I thought MindShift was important, is that it's not simplistic, but I think simplicity is elegant. And there's an elegant simplicity to the book that if you just begin to apply these, you'll have a radical shift in the quality of your own life.
That is wow. Very, very, very deep. And again, like I said, a different way of thinking than most people kind of look at just life and kind of look at how things operate. Um, I absolutely love that. One last question in this segment, and then we'll jump into the next topic. But when things go wrong with somebody, and I think this goes back to what you're saying with that mind shift, you know, how do you kind of give that advice to get them to kind of stay focused on their goals or their mission as opposed to deviating so far off the plan?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is a lot of times when we're coaching people, we focus on what they need to do. And really, the focus has to be on who they choose to become.
Mm.
Because you can help a person make a right choice, but unfortunately, there are 5,000 choices ahead of them. And so, if you help them make the right choice, but you do not help them choose the right person,
Right.
they'll make the other 4,000 decisions so badly, they'll destroy the good one you just made. And so you have to make a shift. For instance, just a small thing, like one of the mantras in my head over decades is choose a life of intention, not a life of obligation.
Mm.
And so the moment I feel obligation, I know I'm deviating the course from the course. And I can tell you how many times I've made decisions in my life out of pure obligation. How about you?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. You do it on a regular basis, so
Yeah.
regular.
And it's only the decisions you make out of obligation that have the potential for regret.
Mm.
And that's why sometimes I have to reverse with people when somebody asked me to coach this friend of theirs, and the first thing they said to me is, well, they were actually Christians, and this guy was a pastor, and he said, well, we made this choice, but we didn't have time to pray about it, and I stopped him and I said, we can't go any further. He goes, what? Well, I thought you were going to listen to my story and help me process this. I go, we can't go any further. You had time.
Mm.
He goes, what do you mean? And I said, you had time to pray about it. You're trying to inject something into your past so that you can release yourself from any responsibility. And
Wow.
so you got to go back and deal with this. You had time. You chose not to, or maybe you did pray and you just misheard what God was saying. Or maybe you prayed and still made a wrong choice. That's a human thing. That's a reality. But don't say I didn't have time because you're abdicating all personal responsibility. And so then you're powerless to make any changes in your life.
Wow. It's some great wisdom. Wait, where can somebody learn more? Website, books, where can they get some of your work from?
Sure, they can go to erwinmcmanus.com. I have an online mastermind that's global that people can join. And we meet every week and have an hour session on subjects either on leadership, communication, character, or big ideas. But also, if you just go to my website, I've written 14 books on these different areas, and I'd love for people to pick them up.
That would be awesome. Wait, we're going to be back with another segment with Erwin right after this.